So born in Corden, that was where the birthplace was, and then basically grew up in this area. I remember very little about super early childhood, but I knew we lived in Marengo for a little bit in a trailer, and then we ended up moving to Oak Grove Road, where I was at by Dennis and Nancy, just down the road. Was there for the majority of my childhood till I was probably 18 or 19, and then we moved up onto the hill there south of Dennis and Nancy. Growing up, we didn't really, for my early childhood, we didn't really go to church other than on Sunday, Easter Sunday. I can remember Steve Watt coming to our house and inviting us to church. And we would go, the once a year and special occasions and stuff. But we weren't church goers. I would say probably for the up until my early teenage years, and that's when Nolan Stroud came by our house and invited Dad to come, and it kind of just turned into what it came in today. We started going there. He led songs, and then leading songs came into doing announcements and everything. And then Dad just kind of felt the call to preach. And Nolan was very instrumental in that, as far as, just being willing to stop. If he wouldn't have stopped, or Dad wouldn't have been obedient, where would we be today as far as, not only my dad, but our whole family? Because his obedience to the call, God calling him to preach, affected his life, obviously, but it affected all of our lives. When my dad first started preaching, I remember I was so hard on him. I was a horrible kid. Golly. I'd be like, Dad, you're not a preacher, I can, and just because it was such a change. But that's what Jesus does. He changes you, a new creature. And then my dad, his willingness to do what he did, and now that I look back on it, it's the biggest testimony ever for me, the biggest influence as far as my walk, is that, I know how God changed him, and I know he could change me, and he did.
For me, my whole life, I lived in one place. So I grew up in English, Indiana, and I never had a different house. We grew up in a log cabin right in the middle of the woods, surrounded by trees, and had a big pond. And so both of my parents had strong upbringing in the church. And so my childhood was very involved in the church. And I've said this a lot of times, like if I've spoke at different places and different things, like we were like Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, any kind of holiday, we were very much involved in the church. So I grew up very much involved with like a church family. And I was around like my same, like one of my closest friends, Abby Taylor, like she and I were at church together every, week, multiple times. We even did like, Halloween nights. Instead of doing regular Halloween, we did, so I was very much churched, and I really do appreciate that now as an adult, how, I had that all my life, and how that was always just, prayer and all that was just so engraved in me from it. There wasn't ever like an option, there was not, we didn't miss very much. And that was just kind of expected. I had already met Nate. We met back through Valeene Wesleyan Church. My parents and I were both going to church there then, and Nate's dad was still a minister at Little Mission, but he came to our Wednesday night youth group with Anthony Moore. And so I kind of met him through that. I had seen him up at Bailey Peaks because I did like to ski, and he liked to ski and snowboard. So I'd seen him up there, but I would say that, we got to know each other better through the youth group.
We didn't have youth group at Little Mission. We just had one service a week, so it was Sunday morning. So that's why I would go to youth up at Valeene Wesleyan with Anthony. And then, so Dad preached there at Little Mission until I was probably 19 or 20. And then that's when he came down here.
I will say, when I first started coming around, your dad was still out at Little Mission.
Yeah. So I was probably 19 or 20, probably 20, 19, somewhere in that area when Dad came to Valeene. And I remember that it was tough, leaving a church, because that's kind of where everything started for my family. It's just very interesting to see how God just obviously saw ahead, but he just knew where we needed to be. And I really appreciate Dad's obedience to the call.
Even though I grew up in church, and even though Nate grew up in church after his teenage years, I would say like when we were in like my later years of high school, his early years of like out of high school, we probably weren't like, both reading our Bibles, praying as we should, even though we grew up in that.
Anthony really did a good job. I don't really remember any sermons he preached. I just knew that, like, how much he loved the Lord and us kids and teaching us. I remember, asking Jesus to come into my life then and just knowing I needed him. But at that age, I didn't know how to say how serious I was. I was just a teenager, but I did enjoy going to youth. And
I think what really changed us is what happened to me when I was in college. So I decided to stay at home and go to college. I had already met Nate, and I decided, you know what, I'm just going to go to IUS, live at home. And so I lived at home, and then everything kind of went downhill a little bit in 2005, because that's when I was diagnosed the first time with cancer. I was still living with Mom and Dad, but I was going to IUS at the time. I really honestly didn't realize what was about to happen. So it happened so quick. So on Monday night, I went to class. I couldn't drive because I couldn't see very well. And I was when I would drive, I would kind of have to turn my head to the side because my tumor that I had at the time, which we didn't know, but it was blocking off the fluid to my spine. And so what was happening is all the fluid was getting trapped in my brain. And so I couldn't visually see correctly and things like that. And so I asked Dad, I'm like, can you drive me to my chemistry course? Because I'm not going to miss class. And so that Monday night, he drove me to class. The next day, I was diagnosed with cancer. And so that morning, I woke up, and the next day, and we were, I basically passed out, couldn't move. Ambulance drive to Floyd County. They let us know right then and there that I needed to be at U of L because I had a tumor in the base of my brain. So at this time, Nate's only 22. I'm only 20. So we're very young. And I think it just hit us kind of like a load of bricks because that's not what you expect. We had plans at that point already to probably, get married. We were already kind of thinking ahead. He hadn't proposed yet or anything, but we were already, we could already kind of see that, God probably put us together. We made a decision pretty quickly, after I had my brain surgery. So the tumor was removed. There was 5% left. And, I'll never forget, we were at the hospital, you probably remember, and they came in and they told us that my cancer had spread to my spine. So my parents had gone that day to take a shower or something at my brother's house, and they came in and told us, Nia, your cancer has spread to your spine. And so that makes your prognosis a lot different.
We've been dating a few years, and then that's when the tumor came and the cancer came, and then that really knocked us on our rear end. Honestly, to be completely honest, it really put a lot of things in perspective and how much we needed the Lord, and you can't take life for granted, and it definitely put us in a better spot spiritually. I wouldn't trade any of that for anything. Going through, well, I didn't go through it. She went through it, but I was just with her. So definitely changed our trajectory in life, physically and spiritually, and we're better people for it. No one likes to go through hard things, but it definitely made us who we are today, for sure.
It was July of 2005. And so we really, and that a lot of what happened was very quick. So I had my brain surgery at U of L downtown Louisville, and we had all these connections that just kind of kept falling into place. My sister-in-law's sister-in-law worked for St. Jude, and my sister-in-law's best friend worked for U of L. So she got us into a brain surgeon. She's like, you've got to have this guy. And then my same sister-in-law, her sister-in-law worked for a St. Jude office in New Albany. It's no longer there, but she said, have you guys ever considered maybe getting a second opinion? So after I had my brain surgery at U of L, like I said, it was a 12-hour brain surgery, and it was a mass called medulloblastoma, and it was at the base of my brain about the size of a golf ball. And so they took it out, and there was 5% left. And so when they came in the day, they told Nate and I that not only did I have 5% left in my head, that it had already spread to my spine. And so that was kind of a hard day because, you know, you get this in my head, because I'm pretty positive, I thought it wouldn't be cancer, and then I would just get the tumor out and I would just go right back to college. But that's not what God had in mind, or that what we had to go through. But that's okay. At this point, we can look back now and say, okay. But what happened was we did get a second opinion. And so instead of 15 months of chemotherapy at U of L, or at the time it had been COSAIR, we went and we called St. Jude. And what was crazy about it all was they had actually called St. Jude to ask about how they would treat me, because it's a childhood cancer. Mm-hmm. So that was odd for me to have a childhood cancer at the age of 20. And so when we actually called St. Jude, they acted like, yeah, we are I think they were very interested in my cancer, because, you know, I'm 20 years old and it's normally in children, 3 to 10. And so they said yes. They even said, I think, can you be here tomorrow? So that was a very quick, we didn't go the next day. We went home, and that's when Nate, he proposed. So
had to get her when she least expected it. I had to strike while the iron was hot, so to speak, you know. But I knew I wanted to marry her. I remember telling my aunt, I was like, I don't care what happens. I'm asking her to marry me. She says, yes, no, don't know, I am. Whatever it is, I'm going to ask. And I did, and she said yes. And but it was a happy time in that moment. But the fear of the unknown, you know, you just don't know. And looking back, we just had to trust in the Lord. That's all. I might not have been there spiritually where I should have been, but God, you know, where it says we are unfaithful, God is faithful in the Bible. I remember telling you that not too long ago, but like, he was faithful, and he knew what we needed, and he definitely opened doors for us to go where we needed to go, and for her to get treated where she did, because we met so many wonderful people, and lots of other patients and families that we connected with down there. And it was truly, I mean, you see it on the TV and radio, and you see the St. Jude-a-thons and all that, but unless you have ever been there or been a part of that place, it is unlike any hospital you've ever been at in your life. It's just such a wonderful, wonderful place. And that's why we're so passionate about doing the auctions and supporting it. And, you know, if we're at a drive-through, they're like, hey, you want to donate up for, you know, St. Jude? Yeah, donate it up. Let's go. Because it did so much for us. And we can't say enough good things about it. But yeah, I think God just really knew where to take us, and we just had to follow it.
I was at U of L, I think, for 16 days.
Yeah.
Wasn't that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so then when I came home, we were only home for just a little bit, and then we just moved to Memphis, Tennessee.
Then when we went down there for the first few days to kind of get things situated, her mom and dad would rotate days, so no one ever left her alone there. I would come down every weekend. So I would get off work on Friday, meet up with her mom and dad, whoever was up here at the time, and we'd drive to Memphis, and I would stay the weekend. And then if I had a week off, I would stay the week down there. But
someone was always there with me.
We just turned into a really good team. I love her mom and dad very much. They were always very good to me, even when we were dating, and then it just made us all really close. You know, it made us really close. Yeah.
Well, what's remarkable about this, and I don't want to forget to say this, so we get to St. Jude, and they are like, you know, we really need to rescan everything, because we have to check. We have to make sure, because we may have to go back in and do surgery again if they didn't get it all. We may have to do, you know, so they do all my scans again just to make sure. I'm sure they, you know, just did MRIs and different things, but I'll never forget that the doctor, his name was Dr. Gajar, he pulled Mom and Dad and I into a room, and you never know, what they're going to say or what they're going to do, but he pulled up the scans from U of L. He said, this is what they gave us, or, they sent. And he pulled up, he said, this is what we just did. And he said, see that? He said, it's not there. So the cancer that they had told us had spread to my spine was no longer in my spine when we got to U of L, or when we got to St. Jude. So the doctors couldn't really explain it. Now we were all thinking, oh, it's a miracle, because people, and that's what I can say too about the Valeene Wesleyan, back to that, they put on their church sign, pray for Nia. And so I still had people, like, especially when I came home almost 20 years ago, they would say, you're Nia, I prayed for you. But it's just crazy that, we truly, that made us believe in the power of prayer. We knew that it wasn't there, or it was there at U of L. That's why they said I would have to have 15 months of chemotherapy at U of L. And my diagnosis completely changed. My protocol did not look the same when we got to St. Jude, because the cancer was not in my spine. Not only that, at St. Jude, they said there's only 5% left, and whatever doctor did this did a great job, because that 5% that they didn't get didn't need to be messed with. And so they were able to get the rest of that 5% with radiation. So I did radiation first. So I had 6 weeks of radiation when I got there first, and that took care of the cancer. And then I had 4 months of chemotherapy, where if I would have not gotten a second opinion and stayed at U of L, I would have got probably 15 months of chemo, because they thought it was in my spine, or it was, and then it wasn't. And so it's just, something that I don't want to forget to say, because that's such a key thing that people need to understand. Like, the doctor said, look at this. This is what your spine looked like at Louisville, and look at now. Yeah. And they had to redo all that, because they just had to make sure that they didn't, their protocol would have looked different if it would have been in my spine. Mm-hmm. And so that totally changed everything. And I will say this too about St. Jude, we were very nervous. I mean, me especially, maybe, I'm sure my parents were too. They're very strong people though, very positive. So they never really let me get down. And Nate we were all trying to be really positive. But when you walked into St. Jude, they just look at you like, I remember one doctor, they're like, Nia, you're going to be just fine. And I didn't feel like that at U of L, because it was such a, rare thing for me to have this childhood cancer. But then when you get to St. Jude, they see it all the time. And medulloblastoma was one of the common ones there. And so it was just incredible, the difference just from U of L to St. Jude and how we felt. And I'd say, Nate, you probably felt that way too. I think we all felt a sense of relief. And I know Mom and Dad would probably say the same, that it was just a different, even though I was very, very sick, it was just a different way. And the thing, and I've said this a lot too, a lot of people that go through cancer, they have to do it at home, mm-hmm. In their hometowns. A lot of people come into their house and different things. And I was able to go to a place where I didn't know a lot of people, and I almost had a time to heal. You know what I mean? A time to be very ill, but then it was like I had a place to live and a place to go back to. And I mean, I did go to the hospital almost every day, but it's almost like they teach you how to do things on your own, so you can be more independent. And I was 20, so it was hard, to see all the little kids, but I was an adult. And so that was odd. But at the same time, we were at the right place at the right time. So in 2005 is when she was diagnosed. So she was at St. Jude for 8 or 9 months. I remember in August or September was when it happened, and then we were on spring. We actually got to go on spring break. So it was like 8 or 9 months total treatment and all that. And then so in 2006. 2006 she was done. Came home. She came home and finished her college. Yeah. Done with that. And then we,
obviously the next couple of years, just with tests and all that, we get through the next couple of years, and we get married 2008, June 14th. I don't know. But yeah, so we got married in 08 and was just really thankful. I mean, when you go through something like that, and a lot of people that watch this or, that know us, or, when you go through something that tough, it really brings you close, not only to the Lord, but just with your spouse and your family. Like, Nia and I feel like we have a really good marriage. I feel like we obviously, we don't ever really fight. We might, give each other a hard time every once in a while, but like, you never want to take them for granted, and you never know what a day will bring. When she was finished her last treatment, there's a protocol where you come back every 3 months, then you come back every 6 months, then you come back once a year, then in 3 years, and then like 5, and then you're basically you're done unless something super bad happens, or, you have symptoms, or, whatever the case may be.
Dr. Gajar, he's the one that was my initial brain doctor. He's the one that told us it wasn't in my spine. He was wonderful. And he even said, like, when I was all done, you need to go have me some grandkids. And so he was just playing around, but we got really close with our doctors. I will say this, I think both of us wanted children for sure. And we knew that was going to be difficult because of all the cancer and all the treatment and everything. It can really mess things up. But anyway, we prayed a lot, and we just sought out God, and we just thought, you know what, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. Now, we had to do some stuff. I mean, especially with Ava, we had to go through some things, but we were very fortunate that really God was just with us through it all. And we were able to have Ava, and even at St. Jude, they were like, you carried her like full term. And like, I wasn't sick. And they can say that. I hate to say this in front of women that are like, have a lot of problems in their pregnancy, because I don't know if it's because I was so sick when I had cancer, but
she was great through pregnancy.
I didn't really even get sick. I mean,
no, and with everything that she'd been through, you would think, well, something's going to go wrong,
I think we were both nervous.
Her pregnancy.
Am I going to be able to carry this baby? And then I was able to go full term with Ava.
Have her naturally, and
and I mean, it was just like, we were both just so thrilled to have a little girl. And I know I watched that gender reveal because I still have it on my phone, even though it's 10 years ago. It's like one of the first videos on my phone, and I would say, like, we were just bawling. A lot of our family was there. I mean, we find out we're having a girl, and we were both just thrilled.
It was a big deal because we just didn't know, and we really, I remember just praying about it. I mean, I had Harvey, which everybody knows Harvey and Eva, they were instrumental as far as being prayer warriors, and so lucky to have them in our lives. And I know they have relationships with everybody in the church. It seems like you get a card. I mean, they're just top-notch people. But, they prayed a lot, and my mom and dad and everybody kind of prayed. But when we had Ava, I was like, thank you, Lord.
And we were just so thankful.
I was like, I'm good with one. We got one.
We were just so thrilled.
I'm happy with one.
But God had different plans.
And then we were good. Everything was good. And Nia's like, man, I wouldn't mind having another. I'm like, And I was like, well, if it's God's will for us to have another child, then it'll happen. And we're not gonna go crazy with anything. We're just gonna say, hey, if it happens, it happens. If not, we've been blessed with a daughter that I love so much. And so we just kind of went on with life. Everything was going really good. Checkups were doing well. She was doing good at school. I was working at my job. Everything was just kind of chugging along. And then we were, I don't know what we were doing, but one day Nia's like, gosh,
we were camping down at Sycamore Springs.
Like I'm gaining weight. I'm like, no, you look good. Ain't nothing wrong with you,
And my brother, we were all down at Sycamore Springs, and he cooked some potatoes or something, and they got kind of burnt, like on the fire. And I had not ever really sick, with Ava, but I was like, something's just not settling right, And my mom had said, Nia, you might want to go to the doctor, and in our minds we're thinking, what? I'm not going to be able to have another child probably. And so it's funny because we took 5 pregnancy tests.
I bought 5 pregnancy tests.
Because we were like, there's no
three
way.
at the Mitchell CVS and 2 at Paley CVS. And then people are probably thinking, what's wrong with this guy? Buying all these, how many women is he with? I mean, what's wrong with this guy? But no, we bought 5, and I thought that I really didn't think we would get pregnant.
Right.
Like I thought.
Neither of us did.
And I was like, if it's God's will for us to have them, we will, and it'll be great. But I thought deep down, I don't think we're going to get pregnant. Well.
Yeah. So I called my parents, and I made an appointment. My mom's cousin's wife, she works for where I go to the OBGYN, and I said, I've got a situation. I've taken 5 pregnancy tests, and I could be pregnant. It's what it says. But I was thinking the whole time, something's wrong. Something's wrong. Either, I didn't know. But I had convinced myself that there's no way. And so we get in there, and we had that place just tore up. It wasn't Nate. I told my parents, I said, hey, will you guys drive me up to the doctor? I didn't tell them anything. So I go in by myself. And the nurse practitioner looks at me, and she said, because I had already done whatever I needed to do, and I was telling her what was going on. I said, I took 5 pregnancy tests, but I know I'm not pregnant. And she looked at me and she said, Nia, you are pregnant. And I just remember thinking, Mom and Dad are in the car with Ava. Nate's at work.
I'm driving.
So I go out to the car, and I was like, guys, I'm pregnant. And they're like, what? And so they knew that I would probably be high risk. And so they said, we need to do an ultrasound. So this whole time I'm thinking, oh, something's wrong. And I'm usually a positive person, but deep down I was like, something's wrong. There's no way. And so we get in there, and the lady checks my heartbeat, or checks the baby's heartbeat. And I'm not kidding, there was no struggle finding the heartbeat. It was like, boom, and it was strong, boom, boom, boom. And I had asked Mom, I said, Mom, do you want to just go in with me? I said, well, you want to go in? Because I'm getting ready to have this ultrasound. So should we get in there? And the lady said, you are probably 11 weeks. And at this point, I'm thinking, 11 weeks? That's crazy. And then we get in there, and they do the ultrasound, and they put that little beam or whatever on my belly, and Max was there, completely formed. I was 4 months pregnant, 16 weeks and 2 days. So the lady, the ultrasound tech, we were like, Mom and I both were a mess, because we couldn't believe, first of all, that everything looked okay. And he was a healthy baby. Not only that, I was 4 months along, and I didn't even know. And not only that, they knew the gender. And so that day, I found out I was pregnant. I found out it was the gender of the baby and everything, and it was a healthy baby boy. And so I called Nate that day. Mm-hmm. After we had done 5 pregnancy tests, both convinced each other we can't be pregnant. And I said, honey, I am pregnant. That was that morning. I said, they're going to do an ultrasound this afternoon just to make sure everything's okay. I'm still kind of thinking it might not be. And so,
it wasn't exactly an Abraham and Sarah situation because of the age, but I really didn't think, not that I doubted God, I just didn't think it was in His plan, but obviously,
right.
What do I know?
We just thought we were going to have one.
I just thought, I was satisfied with one, and I was so thrilled to have Ava, and then, to find out that your wife's pregnant, and when you're having a boy on the same day, we were just kind of like, holy cow, this is incredible, St. Jude was pretty much completed as far as having to do any kind of treatments or any kind of infusions, anything. We've been done with it for it was several.
Yeah, I think the last time we tried to figure it up. I think the last time I was there was 2017,
maybe 17. Yeah, we have Max, and it's awesome. Max was born in 2017. We're basically done with St. Jude stuff, and then in 2020. Yeah. I'm at work. She's been having headaches, just, hey, I'm having headaches. I've been eating ibuprofen like crazy, I'm like, well, just go, maybe you have a sinus infection or something,
Mm-hmm.
You go get checked out.
My friends at school, Nate, everybody had been seeing some signs that something just wasn't quite right. My personality was changed. I just was real lethargic. Like we moved into a new house, and I just didn't really care where things went. But different sides of your brain affects personality.
So I'm at work. I come home from work on a Friday night. Her doctor calls, Dr. Minrath, who we love. She's like, Nia, you have a big tumor in your head, and you need to be at Brownsboro Road, Norton's Brownsboro, either tonight or first thing in the morning. So I take my
kids at home.
I take my uniform off, get in the shower. I said, we're heading out. So we go and head out, and I remember it was probably 3 a.m, and it was a computer screen about like this, and they take a little mouse and they scroll up from the scan, and there it was. It was about a mass the size of an apple in her frontal lobe, and we're just like,
I couldn't believe it.
I couldn't. I'm just like, am I really seeing another tumor, and is it really that big? And they're like, well, you'll be seeing somebody in a couple hours. We'll go from there, and so we start making phone calls and telling obviously our parents and stuff what's going on, and then we find out that what it is a meningioma, probably not cancer. So that was a positive. We're just thankful for that it wasn't something that was cancerous, but just the mass of it is just looking at a big surgery coming up, and we were just I don't know, you just kind of get numb, I guess, in situations where it's like one thing after another. It's like, yeah, this is the tumor, it's not cancer, but you're having a surgery, it's very dangerous. So we're just kind of all processing this and just trying to get through it. And it was just a really odd time, because not only with the circumstances that she had, but in 2020, everybody knows it was COVID. So nobody could come.
Smack dab middle of COVID.
We're in the hospital basically by ourselves, and her mom and dad could come one at a time, and then my dad could come because he was clergy, being a pastor. So it was just a really, really difficult time, as far as obviously more difficult for her, but and with me, it was more of a, obviously I didn't want anything to happen to her, but now that we have kids, changes everything. Not because in 2005, it's just, I'm going to marry her, it's me and her, and whatever happens, we're good. But now we have 2 kids. And I just remember thinking, I can't raise these kids by myself. They got to have a mom, and
when, they made the decision on Monday to have the brain surgery. So I had my brain surgery on Wednesday, and they showed, like Nate said, these pictures of my brain. So I have this massive tumor right here. And we had this doctor, his name was Andrew. He's in Spain, I think now. But he came in before my surgery, and he said, and we hadn't really talked to him a lot about, our faith or anything, but he came in and he said, I just want to know, is it okay if I pray with you all? Now, this is one of the surgeons. Dr. Sun was my main surgeon, and Andrew was his physician assistant. And so he was in the surgery, the room.
He actually fasted with us too.
Yeah. And he said, I'm going to fast. He said, I am going to drink my coffee. But he said, I'm going to fast for you, Nia.
Yeah.
And he said, I want to pray with you guys.
Yeah.
And that touched us. We were both overwhelmed. Because at that point in our lives, our faith had grown a lot more. We have our kids. We're in church with our kids. We have, our prayer lives. And we're constantly relying on God with everything. And here we are again. Facing another brain surgery. And so we get out of the surgery, and Andrew comes back in, the same gentleman that prayed with us, the doctor, and he said, I just want to show you guys something. And so he pulls up my before picture and pulls up my after picture, and he said, Nia, when I touched that tumor, he said, I just touched it and it just slid right out. The whole tumor came out, so nothing was left. And so what's amazing is just how that happened. He just said it just came right out. And it's crazy because the brain is such an odd thing, but it was kind of pushed in. So the tumor was here and the brain kind of pushed in. And then months later, they showed me the scan, and my brain had gone right back up to my skull. And so it's just odd how they can take something out and your brain just knows how to heal itself almost,
So we find out all that. They plan the surgery. They have the surgery. It is a success. We're thankful to the Lord. Everything's, wonderful. And they're like, we're sending you home 2 days.
He said, you are safer at home than you are here in this hospital.
So,
tell them about like the COVID floor.
So like I said, no one could really come, and so I was texting people, my dad, to keep in touch with the church and some of my close friends and people from work, and just saying, pray that everything goes well, and it was just a really odd time because you were so used to going to the hospital and be busy, people walking in and out. You go to the cafeteria, people full. There was nobody there. And it was such a lonely time, but man, I really leaned on the Lord a lot right there, with either prayer or just, meditating by myself when she's asleep, just thinking, just really just trying to process everything and just be like, Lord, you gotta have your hand in on this. I can't lose her, and we've been down this road before, we can get through this. And, it was just a lot different than the first time,
Yeah. After I had my second brain surgery, then I had to have the third brain surgery. So after I came home, we're in the middle of COVID. We don't know what's going on, but I had to go back in because I did get an infection. And so we were doing the best we could, what we knew how to do as far as cleaning everything. We think it might have to do with all that radiation I had on my brain years ago. The stitches weren't healing, or it wasn't healing properly. And the stitches they put in, just dissolved on their own. And so they decided after my third surgery that they put in the stitches that they have to remove. And so I have a titanium plate starting here all the way down here. And it's just like in there, they cleaned out the infection, put in that titanium plate. And so that's kind of where I am today. But thankfully, I do still go. I still go to Norton's Brownsboro, the same place where I had my surgery. I still go there. The last one I had was in September. And so I still go there for checkups to have MRIs, just because we don't want anything growing.
Well, she's had little things pop up since surgery that they can radiate now. So the main thing for the checkups is, let's get checked up every 9 months to a year. That way, if there is something growing, we can zap it.
It's not fast, because what was in my head back in 2020 was just so large. We don't know how fast that grew, so we just have to keep an eye on things. So, and that's what my doctor, my radiation doctor, his name is Dr. Spalding, and he said, Nia, we're going to be friends for a while. And I'm like, good, I want that.
Yeah,
and so, sure. And he actually did a residency at St. Jude, so he knew my doctor from St. Jude, the one that told me, and I didn't say this earlier, but the one that said, Nia, you're going to look back on this, and this is going to just be a bump in the road. This is what the guy at St. Jude, my radiation doctor, and we could, at that time in our lives, all the way, when we were having the kids were little and everything, we looked back on it, and it was just a bump in the road. And we had a cup, another bump, and another bump.
Well,
but you go through things, and
right.
And like Nate said, I could have done without probably that 2020 tumor, but like I will say about what happened to us and with St. Jude, it really made us who we are today. Like I can't imagine life without that.
If just being honest, I don't know if I would be the Christian. I don't know if my walk would be as close. It's never good enough, but I don't think we would be in the situation we're in spiritually if it wouldn't have been for the things that she's been through. I was just kind of a bystander, I guess you'd say, in these situations. But it definitely molded us into our relationship that we have now with the Lord. How could it not? You just been through so many things and so many people praying for you, and just you seen the hand of God work. Really, there's no other way to explain some of the things that's happened. Whether it be you're going to this hospital, or you're having a kid, or just so many things that's happened that I can't. God's handprints have been all over it. What we want out of this is just to glorify God and try to point people in His direction when you're time of need. I really don't think I would have got through it without my faith.
We had to fully rely on God, and just through tests and MRIs and different things, we're just constantly, praying or saying, help me get through this. And, Yeah. When we first came home, don't you think, I mean, I probably had a lot more, like years ago, I was doing a lot more speaking, like for Relay for Life and different churches and stuff. But I've been able to do some even, since then, since the 2020, to just kind of tell our story. We got to speak at, remember T.C. Baker's church?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
He invited us to do kind of a question answer session. And so it was really neat.
It's definitely opened up a lot of things for us to be able to just to tell people our story. And that's, like when it first happened in 2005 and she was done in 2006, she'd speak a lot at women's retreats or the churches and just basically tell the story that you heard. And, people know that obviously I'm her husband. They'd ask questions to me, and it's been a really, it sounds weird, but it's been a wonderful experience just being able to thank the Lord to get through it, but to be able to tell how we got through it and how, God really, He just helped us, Michael. I don't know
and our families too. I mean, we have very, very strong parents. And so I think we have to give that some credit. Like, even with the kids, I mean, we never had to get daycare babysitters. So our whole life, we've really had, the faith of our parents to back us up, the support of our parents and family. Like not only just our parents, but we have, I feel like I'm married into such a strong family. And, I have, a wonderful family as well. And we've just been so blessed. I mean, even though we've been through a lot, we look at each other and we're just like, we are so blessed.
Oh, man, yeah.
Just because God allowed me to live and allowed us to have the children and allowed us to experience this life. And I've told this to Nate not very long ago, like right now, we are just living some of the best times of our lives.
I would just tell them just to try to take a deep breath for just a second and just pause and just look at your situation and know that nothing's too big for God. Like I know our outcome is a good one, and I know that some people's outcomes will not be good. But I would just say just take a deep breath and just try to relax and look at the moment and know that no moment's too big for God, and He's in control of all things, whether good situation turns out good or bad, and know that His plan, whether it be healing here or eternal healing, you're going to get healed one way or the other. I guess it's easy for us to talk about it since everything has worked out for us, and it could have been a lot different. Like they told us so many things through surgeries, like she might not know who you are, she might not be able to talk, she might not be able to do this or that, and she's been able to do all that. And I know that's not the situation for all people, but I would just say just try to trust in the Lord as much as you can, and try to lean on Him, because He truly is a friend that sticks closer than a brother. I really, unless you've been something super dark by yourself, you just don't really understand that scripture, I guess. But man, like there's sometimes you don't feel like you have anybody. You don't have anybody. People change, circumstances change, but God doesn't. And you have to lean on those promises that He made. And I know that that's easy for someone who has came out on a good side of things. Not that we don't still have things that we have to check up and do things, but like God really came through in a major way for us, that where our circumstances is a lot better than some people that we know that have been through sicknesses and cancer, because not everybody survives. Like that's just the fact of life. But I would just say, just put your trust in Him. That would be my best advice.
And I would say this, and because I know, I felt like you have to have a support system. So if you're going through something like that, find people that can hold you up, because there were times, and I've told people this, like I couldn't pray, but I know other people were praying for me. I was so sick. That's more like years ago when I went through my initial brain cancer. But there were times that I just physically didn't feel like I could do it. Or, I could read or I could pray. but I had that support. So like if you're going through a cancer, if you're going through a really dark time, you got to find people. You got to find your people. And I said that I was able to speak at a women's conference at Lanesville a couple weeks ago. And I said that. I said, I was able to have my people around me, lifting me up, praying for me. I had a good church family. You know, years ago, I had Valeene Wesleyan. I had all of them praying. I had a community that was praying. And then with 2020 happened, I had our church here at Valeene. People were praying. I felt that. You know, when I could not physically pray or felt like I had the energy to just even stay awake, I slept. I mean, I feel like I slept through like some of the St. Jude stuff. Like, I just think I had so much medicine. I was just so sick that I just slept. And so I would say to people, just draw close to people that you can. And if there's anything that can encourage you, like I know music really got me through, both at St. Jude and in 2020. Like I would surround myself with positivity. So like I listened to any kind of like Casting Crowns, Selah. I took it to all my MRIs. I had those people at St. Jude. They knew me. They knew I was coming. And I'd be like, I need you to play this while I'm getting my MRI. And I just surrounded myself with that. And I would just, you know, when I was getting my MRIs, I couldn't move, but I could hear that. Yeah. And I could sing it in my head. And I would know, I would count like the songs. I would know, okay, I could probably have like 3 more songs I can get through this. So that's the thing. You kind of have to just see the light at the end of the tunnel, but you got to find something that can get you there. Back in 2020, I drove Nate crazy that I would listen to music. I said, why didn't somebody buy me headphones? But I would listen to music, but that would help me. Like I couldn't sleep, but that would just help me get through things, you know, or I would try to read, but it was really hard. Like it was really hard to stay like in a book. I don't know, I think it just really, something that just helped me was music. And it just was positive. And so I'd say find whatever you can that helps you think good thoughts. Because you don't want to, like I am not one to, for instance, I didn't like get online and look up, Google medulloblastoma, Google meningioma, because those are the things that could bring you down, that negativity of like, well, this could happen and this could happen. I just kind of just went with it and just said, we're going to get through this.
I Google meningioma.
but, you know, that's kind of how we dealt with things. We just kind of, and really at the time, I think, you know, we both were concerned in 2020 because of the kids, you know, like I just thought, I really don't want to, you know, heaven would be wonderful, but I wasn't ready to leave Nate with the kids. And so it was just another eye-opening experience, I think, for us to go through. It's just like, God just walked with us.
It really makes you think about things different when you go through things and you come out good on the other side. I think it just makes you appreciate things so much more. Like her, my family, my kids, like you think you have a bad day at work and everybody has bad days, but it's like, man, it could be way worse. Like I'm not in a hospital. And that's what I try to tell sometimes at church, you know, it's so good to be in church. You could be in a hospital this morning, or you could be on your way to somewhere that someone, you know, you just never know what a day will bring. And I think that's with us, the things that we've been able to get through with God's help is now that we've gotten through, and we just want to encourage people. Like, and like I said, not every situation turns out good or like the way we want, but man, like we just want to encourage God's love and try to surround people with that just so they can get through hard times.